Hi guys, why is it likely that the NHS will be prioritised in the budget? Why should West Streeting the Health Secretary be at the front of the queue that's forming metaphorically outside number 11? Why will Labour throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at the health service? Why will they, as some believe, inject both a significant amount of cash into the system but also demand reforms? Well, the BBC's chief political correspondent Henry Zeffman explains here in this clip for Radio 4 the reason why.
There are people at the top of the Labour Party who say that the NHS for the Labour Party is like immigration for Conservatives. That's to say, it is so fundamental to their appeal that they ought to be able to fund the NHS adequately and run it well, that if they don't do so, the public just won't give them a hearing. And I think that gives you a sense of why there's such frenetic activity in this new government about finding ways to improve the NHS. Clearly, the political context here is that the budget is coming in 9 days' time. There is a general expectation that the health department, that the NHS will get a real terms funding increase. But in the context of the deep pressures on the NHS, how much or how far that funding will go will be a big question. And then I think also at the heart of this, you have that tension that Hugh was just describing there, which is that Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer are talking about long-term fundamental reform to the NHS. It's part of their fixing the foundations mantra. But they know, and certainly individual Labour MPs sitting on small majorities in their constituencies know, that in 4 or 5 years' time, voters will form a view on the NHS based on their experiences of it day to day and what's happening with waiting lists.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they're going to form their opinion. At the next election, they're going to decide, are we going to vote for Labour again, or are we going to vote for Labour based on issues like the NHS? Has the situation improved? If it hasn't improved, if there isn't a clear difference between today and 4 years' time, then people will reject Labour. Now, there's a big difference between what was raised here by Henry about the Conservatives and Labour. In a sense, he's correct. For the Conservatives, immigration was the driving issue. For Labour, it will be the NHS. Now, of course, the big difference is that the Conservatives were using immigration in a very cynical way. The changes that they were talking about would not improve the lives of ordinary people, while improving the NHS will improve the lives of ordinary people. There's a big difference there. The Conservatives had no plan to deal with immigration. They were using it as a tool. And of course, immigration was not that important to the average person on the street. To some people, it was a decider in how they voted. But for average people, cost of living and the NHS were the priorities. So Labour is focusing on a real priority, not an invented one. But as was pointed out, if they don't improve the situation by the next election, and it's not just a little bit of an improvement, but it has to be a dramatic improvement, they're going to be rejected. So it makes sense going into this budget that the NHS is prioritised. And I've mentioned before that if you're able to bring down the NHS waiting list, it means more people can get back into work, people's quality of life should improve. All of these things will improve other aspects of the economy. So it will improve the quality of life of people. It will get people back into work. So you'll see better productivity, more money for the exchequer. All of these things feed into a better outcome. And if people see that, the general public are convinced that things have improved, then they'll stick with Labour. So I think, we haven't seen the budget yet. We haven't seen what the NHS is going to receive. But there are massive challenges. 14 years of Tory rot, in some cases literally, when it comes to certain hospitals literally crumbling and falling down. The NHS needs a massive amount of cash, needs massive infrastructural change, and perhaps reform. But if those things are not achieved within this 4 or 5 year period, as was mentioned, Labour will be removed. Now, unfortunately, if they are, who will replace them is not interested in fixing the NHS. The Conservatives ran it into the ground. If they're back into power, they will run it into the ground again. Reform UK are not interested in fixing the NHS. They're more concerned about immigration. So there isn't really an option for the voter But there is the hope that Labour will improve things. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.